Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight Entertainment. I'm Alexis, and I'm joined by David Francisco here for another one of our Spielberg Files series. As you may know, David and I have been recapping the works of Steven Spielberg and primarily his direct works, some of his produced and written works. But as you can imagine, it has been quite a daunting task in the midst of so much that we've been doing already this year. And unfortunately, we are recording this the week that the new one comes out, so we kind of missed, I guess, what we had wanted to do. But that does not mean that we're going to stop. We're going to plow through. We're going to go all the way. I don't know when we'll end, but we're going to continue with this series. Up until this point, we've gotten all the way up to the year 1989. The last film we talked about was Indiana Jones and the... I was going to say Crystal Skull. And The Last Crusade. We're not there yet. So we've done all the films that have come before, and we intend to do all the films that we're doing tonight and all the way out throughout. And this is, I think, I was mapping it out because so far we've been doing it in batches of 4. Quick timeout on this, though. On our main show, we are going to have an immediate review on Disclosure Day, the new film coming out by Steven Spielberg. So that one will be our initial review, and then by the time we wrap all the way to the end of this series, I expect some distance and time to have passed, and maybe more to sit with our thoughts. Now, I know, David, I don't know, you don't typically watch a movie more than once, maybe sometimes 2 times. If it's a filmmaker that I know I like and it's a film that I vibe with, I at least try and do it 2 times, 3 times, rarely 4 times. With Spielberg, though, this is my guy. This is why we're doing this series. There aren't too many more opportunities to see a new movie by a 79-year-old filmmaker, I'm sorry to say. So whenever he makes a new film, I have to take this opportunity. And I think it's something that we have to just take a moment and appreciate that this may very well be the final collaboration between Spielberg, who is 79, and John Williams, who is 94. I'm hoping there's one more in there. I mean, John's certainly not stopping, but you can't exactly predict how time is going to pass and who is going to fall first, and as far as mortality is concerned. But this is a moment to just soak in it and appreciate. And us having this recap series of Spielberg's works, I feel is just, for the most part, exactly what we wanted it to be, which was to reacquaint ourselves with this man and his work, and really who he is. As I feel like with any filmmaker, you will get to know who that person is if you see their works. And I know you already, before we did this series, this is one of the ones that you were really interested in delving into the filmography of Steven. I know you've seen plenty of his films before this, and some for the first time. Even I myself had some blind spots going into the series. For one was 1941. I had only ever seen Always once before, and I saw it again in preparation for tonight. And then one that I still haven't seen is The Terminal with Tom Hanks that he did in the early 2000s. So those are some films that I had not seen, because the last time I did a Spielberg rewatch was, I believe, in 2021. There was maybe even 2020 when COVID was happening. So anywho, rest assured, this is how the schedule looks like right now. Tonight, we're going to do 4 films, finishing out from 1989 to 1993. That is Always, Hook, Jurassic Park, and Schindler's List. The next episode, which will pick up from 1997 to the year 2001, we're going to do The Lost World, Jurassic Park, Amistad, Saving Private Ryan, and AI, Artificial Intelligence. It's a good thing that I had this week off, so I rewatched literally all those movies in the last few days. So I needed to refresh myself, because this is for me, this 10 to 11, 12 year stretch of Spielberg films is very noteworthy, but there are some gaps in there, because you have a mix of who doesn't remember Schindler's List, except Nazis, obviously, or Saving Private Ryan. But then you also have films that were, I think, even at the time were kind of considered duds. Like, well, we have maybe Some Tonight, and then also Lost World. So it'll be interesting. Then, if we're doing 4x4 every episode, here's what comes after. We have Catch Me If You Can, Minority Report, The Terminal, and I want to say War of the Worlds. Then after that, Munich, Crystal Skull, Tintin, Warhorse. Then the next batch will be Link. Did I skip one?
No, I was like, Warhorse. He did that one? I can't remember. I didn't remember.
Yes. Yes, it's there. Lincoln, Bridge of Spies, the BFG, and then The Post. And the final installment of this recap Spielberg files will be Ready Player One, West Side Story, The Fabelmans, and Disclosure Day. Which is funny because that last episode tells you what a storied and varied filmmaker he is. Because all very different kinds of movies, from Ready Player One, West Side Story, Fabelmans, and then Disclosure Day. And when we record that episode, I expect that there will be, I mean, we have a ways to go, as you can see. So I don't know when we're going to record it, but what I like about it is instead of like building up to Disclosure Day, we're going to have some time to live with that movie and see how it basically holds up. And even that, because sometimes, you know, movies have a really funny way of like, charming you, but then if you try and recall it a week from the time, it may be hard to recall certain details. And so we'll see how it lives. But that's what the schedule looks like so far. I don't believe I've missed a single movie. Hopefully not, but I think it ended up working out where every episode we do is going to have exactly 4.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool, actually. I actually like that.
Yeah, right? It's like it worked out nicely
Perfect
for us in that situation. It would have been awkward if he did Indiana Jones 5. And then, okay, well, how do we figure that out? Although we
could have just been like, skip it, you know?
Part of me wishes he did, because I feel like the story with Indiana Jones 5 was fine. It was fine. It was a fine story. It was a fine movie. But what was missing from that movie was the set pieces. That's kind of what it was lacking. And if Indiana Jones doesn't have set pieces that are memorable or noteworthy or thrilling, then why do you even exist? Is my question. And I think a lot of people's questions, which is why no one cared for it. Even when it came out and it flopped because no one cared about the IP anymore, those that did and saw it were like, dude, what are we doing here? Like, this is not a bad movie, just forgettable.
Yeah.
Anyway, that might come up for some people. Some of the movies that we're going to cover throughout these next few span of Spielberg's career. So, anywho, we're at a really interesting point in Spielberg's career. We're going to begin tonight. Last Crusade, obviously being an indie film, made gangbusters. And it had, was his most successful film financially in a long time for him. I want to say since the last indie film, because not that the films that he made in between were not like, they weren't bombs per se, but they weren't, I feel like this is the thing that in the theme that we touch on quite frequently when we're covering Spielberg and how he is covered by the media. It's always a case of like, not good enough. And then when he does something that they've been asking him to do, they all of a sudden do a switch around and like say, well, not like that. We have that game constantly with Spielberg. And it's always not quite fair. Yeah. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, at the time of Temple of Doom, I mean, how many legendary blockbusters had he made? I mean, obviously. But the talking points had been pervasive that he needed to grow up. He needed to make more mature adult films. And then he started to do that. And almost immediately, it was a case of not good enough any which way you want. Yeah. The color purple had the backlash of sorts. I mean, it was basically ignored by the Academy. I mean, it got 10 nominations. 0 wins. Empire of the Sun also was kind of received a little bit more like a, okay. And then, of course, there was a, right, exactly. And then Last Crusade, brought him right back up. And by the way, we should be clear just because the drama films, Color Purple and Empire of the Sun, didn't do the business that the blockbusters did, it's not as if Steven was like losing money. The entire time, what's going on in the background, he's running a company and he's producing like hits like Gremlins, The Goonies, and Back to the Future. So he's good.
Yeah.
When it comes to like financial issues, there being that there were none. And the idea that he went back to, Last Crusade because he needed a hit, sure, maybe, but also there was an agreement that he had to like fulfill to his friend George Lucas that he would come back and do one more, and there was that too. But we also run into this other issue where I want to say that because he did The Last Crusade, he had to give up another movie that I believe some producer or studio wanted him to do, which was Rain Man, which ended up winning a bunch of Oscars. So it was one of those situations where it's like, well, damn, but ultimately, it worked out for him in the end. We all know how the story ends, obviously, but it was one of those situations where like you can map out that with Color Purple and Empire, he was really in some ways using those films as training wheels to get him to a place to get that Oscar. And in some ways, he's wanted that since Jaws, where he should have been nominated for Best Director, but he was not, if you recall from the clip that we watched all the way back in 75. So tonight we have Always, Hook, Jurassic Park, and Schindler's List, which, I mean, not for nothing, all four of those very different films, obviously. But they all come in very interesting circumstances, and some of those are actually made quite close to each other. So, if I'm not mistaken, and I have some notes here pulled up, Always came out the same year as Last Crusade. Am I wrong about that? I want to say it's 1989. Let me just do that double check because he does this sometimes too. A lot of the times I have it here, 1989. He does this a lot where there are some years he will just randomly drop two movies. And I feel like your mileage will vary depending on like how you feel about the films, but I feel like even you, David, as somebody that doesn't care very much for the Indiana Jones IP, quite enjoyed and liked Last Crusade.
Right.
And you pair that up against Always, which is the first film we're talking about tonight, and it paints an interesting situation that sometimes, unfortunately, is the truth with even a legendary filmmaker like Steven Spielberg, which is always a tale of two Spielbergs. Which one are you going to get? Are you going to get the one that's like all hands on deck, or are you going to get a project where sometimes you get the idea or the sense that maybe he's a little bit asleep at the wheel? And that can happen a few times here too. So anyway, this is the film that we're talking about. The film is Always. This is obviously directed by Steven Spielberg. And by the way, if anyone needs to do a real quick, just like gut check here, it's like, what? I've never heard of that movie before. You'd be forgiven because most people don't even know this even exists. I had no idea this film even existed until like 4 years ago when I did my first like full watch of his films, and I'm like, I've heard literally no one talk about this movie. It's almost like an apparition or a ghost. Anyway,
to be fair though, too, I forgot that I forgot that he did War Horse, and so it's like maybe you just did hear about it, but you just had no idea it was him. So I don't know.
He's done a lot of movies.
Yeah.
In his defense, he's done a lot of movies, and that's kind of how it is sometimes. They're not all going to be Jaws. I'm sorry to say, it's just not doable, which is fine. It's fine. This is I mean, to give you an example, Always currently has a 2.9 rating on Letterboxd, and the rule is if you're on Letterboxd and your rating overall by users is less than 3.0, you're a little bit in like uh-oh territory. It's like a little bit, oh, okay. Some people really don't like this movie if it's below 3.0. They couldn't hear him. They couldn't see him. But he was there when they needed him, even after he was gone. The spirit of a recently deceased expert pilot mentors a newer pilot while watching him fall in love with his girlfriend that he left behind. This stars Richard Dreyfuss in the third and final collaboration between Spielberg and Dreyfuss as the main character here. Holly Hunter is in here, as well as John Goodman. Brad Johnson plays, I believe, the new Flame Ted. And we also have an interesting... Sometimes it's really interesting to see the kinds of actors that pop up in Spielberg's movies. So Audrey Hepburn is in this movie, and she plays, that was her. Can you believe that? She plays the older lady.
The angel, I guess, or.
Yeah, basically. I'm sorry. I'm trying to maneuver around Letterboxd right now. The webpage is struggling with a fucking ad, and it's really... Okay, I guess Letterboxd does ads now, and it's making the page be a little bit annoying. I'm sorry about that. And it signed me out. Great. I love when this happens live. Who wouldn't love that? Anywho, this is the history behind the film. Steven Spielberg confided that while making Jaws in 1974, he and Dreyfuss had traded quips. That means that they were talking over lines from a movie called A Guy Named Joe, considered a classic war film that they both wanted to remake. Mm-hmm. Originally to be an MGM project, the film underwent a protracted 10-year gestation, with Tom Cruise repeatedly being considered for the Ted Baker role. I could totally see that. That would totally be a Tom Cruise role. That's the younger boyfriend that basically takes Richard Dreyfuss' place later in the movie. Okay. Dustin Hoffman was offered a role but turned it down. Dreyfuss had seen, so this was the movie they're talking about. It's called A Guy Named Joe, and it came out in 1943. And Dreyfuss had seen it at least, as he says, 35 times. For Spielberg, who recalled seeing it as a child late at night, he says it was one of the films that inspired him to become a movie director. Creating an emotional connection to the times that his father, a wartime Air Force veteran, had lived through. The two friends quoted individual shots from the film to each other, and when the opportunity arose years later, were resolved to recreate the wartime fantasy. And that's what happened here. Audrey Hepburn, oh my God. This was her last role. This was Audrey Hepburn's last movie. Dang. That's interesting. Anywho. However, at the time of its release, it was, let's see. The film, well, I don't know how it is, but right now, if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, it only holds a 68% based on only 28 reviews. You got to keep in mind at the time, there were far less publications. The website's consensus is that its central romance takes occasional dives into excessive sentimentality, but always otherwise flies high, thanks to director Steven Spielberg's rousing feel for adventure. Roger Ebert considered it dated and more of a curiosity, calling it Spielberg's weakest film since his comedy 1941. Quite interesting there. And then here are some reactions from noteworthy individuals, critics, in 2026. Here's Patrick Willems saying, I have now finally seen every Spielberg movie, and yeah, I don't regret not watching this sooner. It's bottom tier Steven Spielberg, like everyone always says, but on the bright side, it does have Holly Hunter playing what I would describe as a Holly Hunter type role, which obviously always rocks. But who is this Brad Johnson guy playing Ted Baker? Did Spielberg just cast the most cartoon pilot looking guy he could find? Why are we supposed to be rooting for Holly Hunter to fall in love with a guy who looks like he should be Iceman's other crony in Top Gun? Weird, baffling movie. Still watchable, though. Also, the original movie is is called A Guy Named Joe, and yet does not feature a single character named Joe. Truly, what the fuck were people on in the 40s? That's funny. Here's Sean Fennessy of the Ringer Podcast Network saying, there sure is a lot of compelling visual and thematic stuff in this very bad movie that I have never watched until now because everyone I know has seen it has said, skip it. Caring about what happens to loved ones after one dies is a commonly accepted and also practically ludicrous social concept. It only makes sense if you believe in angels and spiritual connectivity and fate. When I die, if I do become an angel, I think I'm going to be interested in things beyond, is my girlfriend going to get it on with the lantern-jawed fellow from the bar who might be sick of a pilot like I was until I explored the sky that one time? No, sir, it couldn't be me. I'll be exploring the fabric of reality and God's almighty vision of existence, riding a wave of galactic ratitude, a silver surfer destined to crest atop the astral plane for all times. One of the greatest dunkings in film crit history is Pauline Kael starting the kicker of her review of this film, oh God, with, now that Steven Spielberg is no longer 12 years old. So Pauline Kael, for those who are not aware, obviously has come up before because in the documentary Spielberg from 2017, Pauline Kael, very credited, very legendary film critic. Go look her up. But at the beginning of Spielberg's career, in his feature film debut with The Sugarland Express, she predicted that he would be a very popular and commercial filmmaker, but she also was calling into question if there was anything underneath the surface at that time. And I think a lot of people have come around and saying that perhaps she was correct, at least in that instance, in that moment, that he had not yet found his voice as an artist, or at least had grown up with the movies. Because, people really were obsessed. And maybe Pauline Kael was the first one, and maybe it originates with her. People in the media were really obsessed with the idea that Spielberg was a big kid and that was wrong. And he needed to grow up because he needed to be an adult. And I don't know about you, David, but that always rubbed me the wrong way.
Honestly,
I'm like, what is wrong with that kind of sensibility as a filmmaker? Unless you're trying to say that because he was a big kid, he had no substance. But I feel whatever doubts there were of him not having any substance were quickly swatted away with the films that were coming out in successive order. But yeah, go ahead, David.
Honestly, the thing that annoys me is something that's still happening now is people try to connect the movie with the person who made it. They're trying to see if I made a character who let's say if I made a character who thinks he's the coolest person ever or something like that, then they're gonna analyze me thinking, oh, is this who you think you are or something like that? And it's I was just trying to make a character, dude. I just thought it'd be cool to have this. That's all. I just hate even now just how people want to really connect the person to the storyteller when it's okay, maybe there is some connection and all that, fine, but you don't need to let that skew your critique of the movie and all that. But then also too what the fuck does it have to do with you reviewing the movie either way? What does this have anything to do with what you're supposed to do? I got confused there for a second, sorry. It's just I was just finishing someone breaking down The Boys TV show, and they just kept bringing up over and over going oh man, I bet the Eric Kripke thought he was so cool in doing this. I bet Eric Kripke thought he was this person. I bet. And it's just dude, shut the fuck up. I agree with them that the show is bad. I stopped watching it in the second season and all that, but it's this is so unnecessary. Just say he's a bad writer and then move the fuck on. It just makes it seem like you have some personal vendetta against this guy. And that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like with fucking Spielberg all the time, where it's just why are you all bringing this up? He's making a good movie. Fucking just focus on the critique and move on. Yeah. That dude's doing fine without you, by the way. Whatever the fuck you say, he's gonna keep making movies. He's gonna keep being famous about it. Should I analyze how you analyze the movie? Be are you just fucking jealous? Is that it? And so it's just an annoying thing.
I mean, I agree with that sentiment, obviously. That there have very much been all kinds of criticisms against him all throughout the entirety of his career that feel like they're going way beyond the line of where they really should be going. Like, it's one thing to criticize the writing and the directing, but it is fascinating to me that since Pauline Kael dropped that review of The Sugarland Express, the first movie he did on a big screen, people could not have let that, even I think to this day, people can't let go of that whole notion of like seeing Spielberg. I feel like between the 70s and the 80s, up until like the early 90s, right? People were like, oh, when is Steven Spielberg gonna grow up and make movies for adults? Well, they couldn't say that shit anymore after Schindler's List. So that ended that conversation. So then what was the next thing that we're gonna get him with? Somewhere in the late 90s, between the late 90s and the late 2000s, there became, and I feel like, unfortunately, Crystal Skull may have been the movie to just like give a lot of people the opportunity to then come up with a new narrative about Spielberg which at that point wasn't even all that new, that he was overly sentimental in that his style of making movies is no longer what is fashionable. And to a large extent, that criticism and that way of thinking has, I feel, persisted to this very day. Because, and you could look to the kind of movies that Marvel Studios makes, you can make to the kind of movies that Nolan sometimes makes. And especially with both of those rabid fandoms, there is this idea in what I think that blossomed in the 2010s to right now, that if you are making movies that are overly sentimental, which that is up for debate, how sentimental is too much sentimental, okay? But if you're making movies that were sincere and had heart, I mean, this is why in a large way, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies kind of came out of fashion, at least not now, but in the 2010s, because you had like Man of Steel, and that whole Zack Snyder thing, or you maybe also had Marvel Studios, which was not quite all the way to Zack Snyder, but they were making self-deprecating jokes that often came at the cost of like genuine sincerity. And that's what I'm trying to get at, is genuine sincerity. And when that is detected among a section of modern day film fans, they sneer at it. They look at it with cynicism and they kind of question why it's there, because in their minds, it kind of goes back to the whole like, oh, it's too cheesy, or it's too movie. Like, I've always hated that kind of thinking. And so when you consider the attitudes that modern day movie fans have kind of clung to, with the advent of the internet and YouTube really exploding, especially in the early 2010s with like AMC Collider Movie Talk, Screen Junkies, a lot of people who were coming up and watching and becoming cinephiles, unfortunately, kind of like got a lot of wrong, in my view, cliched, really skewed points of view about Steven Spielberg and the kinds of movies he makes. And in some ways, they were kind of like trained to think that over sentimentality is something that is a weakness in every single movie he makes. And I'm not saying there are not movies he's made that are exactly what this is, where it's overly sentimental. You can even say Always is maybe the prime example of a film that he makes where it's going way too over the top, but it's not really earning the feels. And so it becomes a victim of that cliche. But then you look at a movie like Schindler's List, which, despite all the awful things that happen in that film, is still a very sentimental movie, because at the heart you have a man who is basically Tony Stark when you think about it. He's just like somebody who's like profiteered off of people's suffering and war and destruction, but he has a change of heart and he saves lives. When you save one life, you save the world entire, as they say in the film. And then the whole, ending of the film is him breaking down. It's like he could have saved more people. Yeah. It is a very sentimental film, and yet you don't see anybody going after that movie for being overly sentimental. So this is what I'm saying. It's like, because of how audiences have evolved or how they've grown and certain talking points that have been kind of passed down, we're now in a space where anytime there is a new Spielberg film, I fundamentally expect that there are going to be a section of people who are just not going to vibe with the movie because they don't vibe with the kinds of movies that he makes. And all the movies he makes are sincere and wear their hearts on their sleeve. And I know that I'm quite biased when I say I, for the life of me, could not understand why there were quite a bit of people that were very much either underwhelmed or completely put off by the last two movies he did, which I'm glad to say I've seen a lot of people kind of like do revisionist history and say, man, what a 1-2 punch West Side Story and Fabelmans were. They were, but at the time they weren't being treated that way at all. In case anybody forgets or forgot what it was like when those movies came out and they got kind of a bit of a, kind of a reaction. And so even now with the new movie, the kind of movie that Disclosure Day is getting, I feel a lot more support because of the genre that it inhabits. Okay. But there's still people who are going to be like interesting about it. I don't want to get into Disclosure Day obviously at all, but I feel like all of these criticisms are interesting and I feel in large part are absurd. And yet a lot of people don't feel that way. Now, one good thing I will say is the criticism certainly kept Spielberg wanting to try harder. And you could maybe make the argument that without this constant just like narrative that even he gave into, which was chasing the Oscar, if he wasn't operating on those levels, would he even have the ambition to create what he eventually would create? Because I feel like no matter what, the film that shut people up, we'll get to tonight when we get there. But I know this is like a side tangent, but it really is not a side tangent. It's kind of the main thing. When we're doing an exploration of Spielberg's works and his life, this is something that has persisted. And you are right, David, to point this out, that one way or the other, there is a group of people that just dog him for reasons. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's just kind of what happens when you're an overnight success like he was.
I mean, it happens now. So
yeah,
it happens not just with him, but like any celebrity, like actor or actress who just becomes an overnight sensation. I'm honestly kind of worried about the actress on Obsession. Like so far, everyone's loving her and all that, but like at some point, she's gonna get into like the next 3 big movies, and people are gonna be like, she's in everything. Why? Blah, 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 blah. And it's just
and
like
they're always overly critical about females than they are about males. Something that doesn't happen to males too, because that bullshit last year with Pedro Pascal was annoying the hell out of me. It's like, oh, so he's in movies. Okay, get over it.
Yeah.
Move on. Like, it's like people are just going out of their way to create drama where there need none exist. Is my like constant annoyance. It's like there are real dramatic scandals to talk about when it comes to movies. How they are made, how they are greenlit, how much money it costs to make them, why the executives are trying to use artificial intelligence to box out huge segments of the industry that actually employ human beings, why they're collaborating with the fascists to ensure that there's a conservative agenda on the horizon for their capitalistic like ventures. Like that is real like crap to discuss, not whether or not Timothy said some bullshit about ballet. Like that's always my,
no, yeah, I agree. yeah, there's far more important things to talk about. It's just every time I keep telling myself like, I'm gonna stop watching these people, like that I see something and then I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like more fuel to the fire of like, just I knew it, like you all just fake and all that. It's this Masters of the Universe movie is like really showing people's true colors. That's all I say.
Anywho, David, this is an interesting movie. I have some thoughts on it. Always. I heard you laugh at some of the things that I was reading about this movie. And it seems like you may come at it from a very same standpoint. What did you think of this movie?
I did think it was good. I really didn't have much problems with it, but it's also just, it's an okay movie. I should say this. I didn't find it to be bad. It is an okay movie. Like straight down the middle, okay movie. Richard Dreyfuss is absolutely great in it. And I really do feel like if he wasn't in it, the movie would have been bad for sure. But he was great. I always just love Spielberg's style of cinematography and lighting, and was really surprised by the end of kind of what's the word? Oh fuck, I can't remember the word. But like it changed.
It's okay.
But like I didn't expect the ending, who he was going to help in the end, basically. But yeah.
So, I feel like overall the acting in this film is solid.
Yeah.
The only one where I seriously have to question what movie he thought he was in was Brad Johnson, who is an actor probably no one's ever heard of, and for good reason. He's the one that plays Ted, the younger boyfriend. I feel like for the most part, he's largely flat and unremarkable. Like, I feel like he's giving the kind of performance in so much of this movie that reminds me of what people thought Brett Dalton's performance was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was like this like white bread, vanilla, just like kind of guy like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are moments where he makes some really weird choices. And I don't know, sometimes it's kind of hard to believe he's a real person. Like he's kind of a klutz. He also, I don't know, is pretty. And sometimes I don't know. I don't know how he codes, but like sometimes you get the impression that maybe not all right in the head. Like there was a really funny moment where funny and honestly kind of sad, where like the girl that has a crush on him is like talking to him at this bar, and I forgot how the scene was gonna go, but it basically comes off like, okay, I like you too, and I can't like get the words out, but then instead of saying her, he's talking about some other girl, and it's so awkward, and I'm like, okay, and doesn't even think about that moment at all, you know?
It feels like his character was just being in a straight up romance, but like I didn't find this to be a romance movie at all. I mean, I don't think it really is because of Richard Dreyfuss' character of someone, trying to help someone move on after his death and all that. So it's like it's not really a straight up romance, but like that's how his character felt. Like he, like he thought he was the main character or something in the story, but he really isn't. I don't know. It's just I don't know if that makes any sense, but like that's kind of how I saw him the entire movie. Basically, it's like you feel like you're trying to be the main character of the movie, but you're really not, dude. So you kind of have to stand out in a different way. So I don't know.
I will say, from a cinematography standpoint, it looks beautiful.
For sure.
The movie anyway. Overall, though, I do feel like this just doesn't quite do it for me. It is a very fine movie. And I don't know what was going on. I don't know, but it's kind of a confounding thing to have a Spielberg film that doesn't quite click. And this one Seriously did not, like, at all. So yeah, that's always. That's that's just
Yeah.
kind of what this movie is. Is there anything else to say about this one, David?
No, not really. Like I said, like I really didn't find this to be a bad movie. I think it's perfectly fine if you are a Spielberg fan. I think it is worth the watch. At least to like, it's an interesting uh topic of conversation. Uh, and I mean, I just don't know what it is about it that didn't click for us. Maybe the concept itself of like, dude coming, he's gonna come back to life, but like, helping people from the grave and all that. I don't know. Maybe it was just too much for us. Um, I don't know, but yeah, it's an
Yeah,
okay movie.
very much okay. Well, we're not going to move on to the next film in Spielberg's long, long filmography. And this is a movie that I think not only at the time, not only to this very day, but I think till the end of time is going to be a weirdly divisive movie. I say weirdly divisive because I think like if you're just a kid and you're watching this film, even an adult in these times, if you don't really know the history of the people making it and you just watch this film, I feel like you'd watch it and you'd kind of be like confused as to why people were making a big deal out of this for it being a disappointment. But I guess you have to put yourself in the mindset of 1990 or 1991. I don't know which one. I'll see right now. But the point is, I guess Hollywood and audiences were kind of setting themselves up for failure because they basically have Steven Spielberg, who at that point was seen as Hollywood's Peter Pan. Somebody who just refuses to grow up. The boy wonder, doing a movie about Peter Pan. And you also have Robin Williams, who, I mean, it's Robin Williams, so I feel like a lot of people were setting this up to be like the best movie ever made. And when it wasn't that, it caused, I feel, a severe backlash. This is a film that has had a lot of people have some strong feelings at the time. When our generation were children and we watched it even to this very day. In fact, just today, David, I sent you, I don't know if you saw on your TikTok messages, I sent you a video of Spielberg at a pub. He was answering questions or trivia night. It was a Spielberg trivia night. He showed up and one person asked or told him that I really love your movie Hook. And he was asking Spielberg if he understands why now all of a sudden people love it. And he basically said, you know what? I don't know, but I'm not complaining. I definitely appreciate that because I'm sure at the time he got a lot of hate for it. And one of the things that I like about Steven is that he's very sincere. And I think it's very obvious when criticism weighs heavy on him. I do think like a lot of the times it's so aggressive that he feels the need to like agree with the criticism and say, you know what, maybe that was a mistake. Like when it comes to, 1941 is pretty indefensible. That one, no,
Yeah.
no one's going to defend that one. But I feel like with this movie Hook or even with Temple of Doom or some other movies that he's made, there are like times where it's like, it's been so ripped to shreds where he's like, you know what, maybe I did go a little too far in that area. And I feel like in the years since, he's had a really interesting relationship. I think Hook is one of the movies that Steven, I think, struggles to kind of form his own mind about it to this very day. And there's a long history about what this movie was originally supposed to be versus what it ended up being. Did you watch that video I sent over? Because that's a really interesting history of that film and what I think some people were thinking it could be. But I think I remember also reading that like he watched this movie 10 or so years ago when Robin Williams passed away, and he gained a new appreciation for the movie that he had made. Anyway, this is Hook from 1991. To live would be an awfully big adventure. Oh my God, that was the last line of the movie. And when I tell you, when I rewatched it this week, literally was sobbing because like, well, if that's basically the movie summed up into a single line. I think it's one of my favorite endings in a Spielberg film, I got to tell you. And that emotion hits like a ton of bricks, I will tell you. The boy who wasn't supposed to grow up, Peter Pan, does just that, becoming a soulless corporate lawyer whose workaholism could cost him his wife and kids. During his trip to see Granny Wendy in London, the vengeful Captain Hook kidnaps Peter's kids and forces Peter to return to Neverland. What an amazing cast. Robin Williams as Peter Pan, Dustin Hoffman as Captain Hook. You have Bob Hoskins as Captain Smee. Julia Roberts here is Tinkerbell. We should not at all forget, at the time, maybe not a name, but as far as our generation is concerned, a celebrity, Dante Bosco as Rufio, as people will never forget that. And then, hilariously, somebody who I always forget is in this movie and always forget she didn't look like that at that time, Maggie Smith as Wendy. Because at the time, she's wearing old lady makeup, heavy old lady makeup in the year 1991, because she was not old quite yet. But when you see her in this movie, you're like, well, that's just Maggie Smith, because she's always looked that way to us. If you know her from like Harry Potter and then on, it's like, oh, that's just Maggie Smith. Mm-hmm. So like, I feel like if you don't know that she wasn't old, you think, wow, how long did she live? Because that's, I think, one of the things that you think about.
I was just realizing that. I'm like, yeah, they did. Yeah, she must have been like wearing old makeup because like, damn, that's gotta be so long. It's like, it's really hitting me now. I just thought like, yeah, that's just her.
She only passed away like, what, a few years ago? It wasn't that long ago that she passed away either. So, yeah, that's hilarious to me. But yeah, this is the cast that we have here. Here's some of the history. Or at least some of the inspiration. Steven Spielberg found a close personal connection to Peter Pan's story from his own childhood. The troubled relationship between Peter Banning and his own son, Jack, in the film echoed Spielberg's relationship with his own father, Arnold. Previous Spielberg films that explored dysfunctional father-son relationships included E.T., Indiana Jones' Last Crusade. Peter's quest for success paralleled Spielberg starting out as a film director and transforming into a Hollywood business magnate. I think a lot of people today are losing their imagination because they are work-driven. They are so self-involved with work and success and arriving at the next plateau that children and family almost become incidental. I have even experienced it myself when I have been on a very tough shoot, and I have not seen my kids except on weekends. They ask for my time, and I can't give it to them because I'm working. That's Steven Spielberg, a direct quote from him. Like Peter at the beginning of the film, Spielberg has a fear of flying. He feels that Peter's enduring quality in the storyline is simply to fly. Anytime anything flies, whether it's Superman, Batman, or E.T., it's gonna be a tip of the hat to Peter Pan. Spielberg reflected in a 1992 interview, Peter Pan was the first time I saw anybody fly. Before I saw Superman, before I saw Batman, and of course, before I saw any superheroes, my first memory of anybody flying is Peter Pan. The genesis of the film started when Spielberg's mother, Lee, often read him Peter and Wendy as a bedtime story. He explained in 1985, when I was 11 years old, I actually directed a story during a school production. I have always felt like Peter Pan. I still feel like Peter Pan, and it has been very hard for me to grow up. I'm a victim of the Peter Pan syndrome. In the early 1980s, Spielberg began to develop a film with Walt Disney Pictures that would have closely followed the storyline of the 1924 silent film and the 1953 animated film. He also considered directing it as a musical with Michael Jackson in the lead. Yes, you heard that right, with Michael Jackson, which, by the way, had that in some alternate reality, they made a musical Hook with Michael Jackson in the lead. Now, that would be something I would want to see. Yeah. Whatever that would be. That would be quite interesting. Jackson expressed interest in the park, but was not interested in Spielberg's vision of an adult Peter Pan who had forgotten about his past. The project was taken to Paramount Pictures, with Dustin Hoffman already cast as Captain Hook. And in '85, they began the filming. Well, they were gonna filming to begin at sound stages in England, but I don't believe they were actually there just yet at that time. They were still working out the kinks of what exactly they wanted the story to be, and it wouldn't go on for at least a few more years. And then, of course, it was released December 11th, 1991. And this is what Roger Ebert said. The sad thing about the screenplay for Hook is that it is so correctly titled. This whole production is really nothing more than a hook on which to hang a new version of the Peter Pan story. No effort is made to involve Peter's magic in the changed world he now inhabits. And little thought has been given to Captain Hook's extraordinary persistence in wanting to revisit the events of the past. The failure in Hook is in its inability to reimagine the material to find something new, fresh, or urgent to do with the Peter Pan myth. Lacking that, Spielberg should simply have remade the original story straight for this generation. Spielberg stated in interviews, this is in 2011, there are parts of Hook I love. I'm really proud of my work right up through Peter being hauled off in the parachute out the window, heading for Neverland. I'm a little less proud of the Neverland sequences because I'm uncomfortable with that highly stylized world that today, of course, I would probably have done with live action character work inside a completely digital set. But we didn't have that technology to do it then, and my imagination only went as far as building physical sets and trying to paint trees blue and red. In 2013, with Mark Kermode, you see, he keeps changing his answer. He said in 2013, I want to see Hook again because I so don't like that movie, and I'm hoping someday I'll see it again and perhaps like some of it, which he did, as a matter of fact. I told you that later on with Robin Williams. In 2008, he said that I felt like a fish out of water making Hook. I didn't have confidence in the script. I had confidence in the first act, that I had confidence in the epilogue. I didn't have confidence in the body of it. He added, I didn't quite know what I was doing, and I tried to paint over my insecurity with production value, adding that the more insecure I felt about it, the bigger and more colorful the sets became. This movie was nominated for 5 Academy Awards: Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Makeup, Best Original Song, and Best Visual Effects, all of which lost to other movies. I feel like some of those technical categories, it didn't really have much of a chance, David, because it was up against Terminator 2: Judgment Day.
Oof.
Which,
okay.
That's a tough one to compete against. So
if it was the first Terminator, like, I would have been like, it could have deserved it. You know, I still haven't seen the first Terminator, but, like, you know, it had to be Terminator 2 though. Damn.
That one's tough. Anyway, there's more I can read about it as far as like what people have put on Letterboxd, and I will. But to sum it up, and everybody knows this, this has always been a complicated movie to talk about. My personal perspective is, I think all this conversation, including even Spielberg's like inconsistent way of like how he views this movie, I'm sorry, I feel like it's much ado about nothing, because like ultimately, I wasn't alive in the year 1990. I can read about like what people's attitudes were then, but I am not of that generation, nor am I I do belong to the generation that like has reclaimed that movie, reclaimed it, I should say, and like brags about it, and like it's an amazing movie. I am part of that generation, but I'm not part of that crowd because I didn't really grow up with this movie. I obviously grew up with Peter Pan, the animated movie, but I never, for whatever reason, watched the live action version. I feel like, let me just tell you something right now. I thought very little of live action remakes of animated movies, even as a child. I feel like child me in these days would be very vindicated about, because where that trend has gone.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'm trying to think of, I thought very little of them, because I feel like so many didn't work, and there were a few that did work, but even then I didn't care for them nearly as much as I did as much for the original animation. So I don't know, one reason or the other, no one put this movie in front of me. I didn't seek it out. I didn't watch it really up until, I don't know, to tell you the truth. I want to say maybe like the mid 2010s, and then later again in the early 2020s. And all I can tell you is, maybe I have been so beaten down by the way that not just Disney, but other companies and studios have been doing live action remakes of animation adaptations, that when I see something like Hook, if there are problems, if there are issues, I almost don't even give a shit. Because when I think about the issues and the problems that all those other examples have, it doesn't even come close to touching what this is. Because what Hook ultimately is a very sincere film. It's a lovely movie. I feel like it's really not that complicated of a film. I mean, it's, it tussles with, like, really in a lot of ways, Steven's own issues about, like, growing up and, trying to, like, not forget about who you are. And maybe it's not the most eloquent piece on the subject ever made, but I feel like whatever it's trying to get across gets across. And I feel, for the most part, this film is always entertaining. Now, even in some reactions that I was watching, it's like, are there points in the movie where it, like, maybe slows down, or maybe it's a little self-indulgent? Sure. I will say it feels long, and it is a long movie, and there may be some portions that should be trimmed down. I will grant you those. But at the end of the day, when I think about the film, I just think it's a really good movie. Again, we can get into issues, we can get into problems. And I say this again as somebody who did not grow up with it. I don't have that nostalgia that maybe you would have, David. I'm just looking at it from my standpoint and my sensibilities. This is a very entertaining film. This is a very, in a lot of ways, heartwarming movie. And I think, to me, this, in a lot of ways, is what I would want live action adaptations or remakes or sequels to animations to look like and do more of. Where it's not just the same thing all over again. And I'm sorry, Roger Ebert, and I'm nobody to tell you this, you were wrong. Because I'm in the future, and I can tell you, we see too many just straight up shot for shot remakes, and we know where that went, and it has been disastrous. Anyway, David, your thoughts?
Yeah, I can't remember if it was Roger Ebert that said this. I don't know. I remember it was in the video where someone said that the movie was style over substance. The second I heard that, when I heard that, I had already watched Masters of the Universe. That is a movie with style over substance, and I don't know what the heck people talk about. I just don't understand the hate for this movie at all. I thought this was super, super fun from beginning to end. I absolutely love all these characters. Robin Williams is great. This is just like really a fun movie. I actually much prefer this than any of other like Peter Pan movies, just because it's just fun. Like the sets, who Spielberg was like feeling conflicted about the sets, but I mean,
to be clear, he wasn't just feeling that because it was something that came out of his own thing. He was addressing a criticism that originated from the people, because when the movie came out, one of the big things that was being criticized was the larger than life sets. And I feel like if I were Steven, I wouldn't have given that any thought, because originally the reason why those sets looked that way was because it was supposed to be a musical.
True.
But even if as this is not a musical, I fail to really find any kind of sympathy with that criticism.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, there were too many sets, or oh my God, the sets were like, they were too set looking. I feel that adds part to the magic and the charm of the film, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, again, having the perspective of being in the future, I've seen far too many films that have absolutely, where all their sets consist of blue screens,
Yeah.
or maybe the volume. And I'm sorry, I find very little sympathy with that kind of attack, where I'm on the other end of things in the timeline, and I'm like, I don't know, I would take those sets over what I'm getting 10 times out of 10 every day, David.
No, yeah. I remember when watching this movie, I was like, this feels like a toy set. Like, I can just pluck someone from this right now and just be like, grr, on guard, or something like that, It's like, that's just how I felt like watching this whole movie. It's just, I'm watching people on a play set or something. And yeah. And like you mentioned too, like the story itself, like, it's just a very simple story. I never felt any like slow moments with the movie. Maybe moments with Tinkerbell, I don't know. But either way though, like I liked her story, what she was struggling with and all that. But yeah, just everything about this, I really don't have much complaints. This is just super super fun.
Honestly. Well, let me see, just to get a sense from some people here. All right. Let's look into what we have. I mean, a lot of people just don't vibe with this one at all. Here is let's see here. Chris Evangelista says a mess, but it's a Spielberg mess, which means it has its moments. Griffin Newman, and his review is just no. He gave it half a star.
How?
Patrick Willems, anytime Maggie Smith is on screen, it turns into a different, much better movie, but unfortunately, she's only in it for like 7 minutes. Here are some popular reviews by random people, I want to say. One of those rare cinematic curiosities where you can tell instantly how old someone was when they first saw the film based upon their reaction to it today. It goes like this, almost without exception. Those who first saw Hook as an adult will, by virtue of being a horrible grown-up, completely and utterly loathe the film, detesting everything it represents about cinema today. They will deride Hook as bloated and indulgent, tricksily Spielbergian sentimentality run amok, and worst of all, gasp, totally made up, phooey, ridiculous, make-believe kid nonsense. Don't feel bad for them. That's just typical of grown-ups. Meanwhile, those of us who first saw Hook as kids, well, the truth of it is we can't help but adore the utter crap out of this film. It's in our DNA to love it. That's what happens when you wear it out a billion of VHS copies of Hook as a kid. So of course we're going to have fond feelings for the film today. As well as deep-seated loathing of Dustin Hoffman for killing Rufio. Rufio, you shall be avenged. So what's the moral of the story? Well, as with all good stories and films for children, there isn't any. Except maybe this. Big, loud, bombastic food fights in Neverland. Boy, they'll stick with you. Here's another one. One of the most endearing and likable bad movies I've seen. Okay. Here's another one right here. There is a lot to dislike about this movie. So much that apparently Spielberg doesn't even love it himself, but I think it's magical. Julia Roberts having fun, incredible production design that feels like a Universal Studios live show, outstanding cameos, all-time iconic performance from Dustin Hoffman. If I had just one more beer in me, the scene where the little boy says, "Oh, there you are, Peter," would have brought a tear to my eye. Spielberg brings a sense of fantasy and whimsy to so many other projects. It's great to just see him take that style right to a straight up fantasy. And frankly, I don't think Paddington 2 exists without Hook. There's a level of camp to the pirate's performance and lifestyle that feels almost directly lifted for Paddington, and I love it. Watching this film from the point of view of the Lost Boys is a trip. Imagine losing your idol to disillusionment of adulthood, and being stuck in the limbo of moving on and fighting to pull him back into the light. Imagine not knowing where your leader has gone all these years, only to learn he went and had his own life away from your world, created by his own family, and grew up into the one thing you'd known you'd never wanted to be. It's not something Spielberg leans on, but watching this movie as an adult has me thinking so much more about the tragedy of The Lost Boys, which is a tragedy that works so much better than the whole 15 seconds devoted to Rufio's death before everyone just kind of moves on. Weird. That's funny.
Yeah, okay. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, they just completely move on from his death and all that. There's not even like a moment of them carrying him, and I actually forgot this too. At the end, when the one kid was like, "That was a fun game," I was like, "Your friend just died, dude."
What
like,
friend?
Yeah, it's just, I don't know if you should say game or it was fun and all that, and it's so weird. Like, it's just that one death that kind of like
can I
throws
just
it off
ask
a
a
bit.
question? That group that was left was like maybe a handful of Lost Boys. Where did the rest of them go?
That's
Like
true.
it wasn't just Rufio. Did they all die?
I mean, they were just
Because it was a massacre.
yeah. I mean, I don't know how the whole battle went down. I always just saw it as the kids were just fucking shit up for the pirates and all that, and the pirates were just like, just not really good fighters or anything like that. Which, like, if Rufio hadn't died and all that, like, I would have been okay with that moment. I would have been, but there was a death, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, maybe a bit more seriously on that. Okay, so yeah, I completely forgot about that one. But like that just shows you like how much other good stuff there is in this movie. Especially with all those kids. I freaking love that little the kid that became the leader.
Yeah. I forget
was
his name.
Just adorable kid, honestly. When he
Yeah.
dances and it's just like the little dance that he does, it's so funny. And then what was it? I don't know. He turns himself to like some bowling ball and all that.
Yeah.
He was the best, and I'm really glad that he became the leader. And I actually heard, I don't know if it's true or not, I could be fake, but I heard that the kids didn't know who was going to be picked in that moment.
Oh,
And so
that's
that was a
interesting.
genuine reaction from
Yeah.
that kid, and I was like, oh, that's sweet. So I like to think it's true because I don't know, it seemed real. So
Yeah.
but yeah, and then to kind of, I guess, for the people who saw it when they came out, I would give them this. If Hook was made today, I probably would have been the same as them, being like, especially with like the movies that we're getting now and all that. I would have been like, oh my gosh, another like this kind of movie of, completely just throwing or like just, oh my gosh, what's the fucking word? Expectations or something like that, like the Virgin expectations, and all that. Anyway, basically that kind of movie, if it was made right now, I would have been pretty cynical about it. Would have been thinking that it was gonna be bad. But again, stop. Don't put your own bias into these reviews. I would have loved it, obviously, and so yeah, it is a weird movie to be so critical of, but it's fun, man, and especially the score. Oh my gosh. What was it? John Williams. His score is always a standout in every single movie, but this one though is.
Oh, yeah, that's right. This is a very good score. Oh my God, you're
gosh.
right. Yeah.
No, especially the ending. I feel like I was kind of getting like tones of Star Wars and all that, but I mean, I feel like you can say that with a lot of others' work. But yeah, this was just probably my best of, at least with him working with Spielberg. Like, I think this might be the best score.
Of all the movies?
Of all, like,
Wait,
with him and Spielberg working together. Like, I don't want to put
Spielberg and Williams.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's this with what else?
I mean, like, ET's for sure.
E.T..
Top. I mean, what else?
Indiana Jones.
Eh,
That's, I mean, I guess if you
that's
like.
the thing though is that's all I remember. That's all I remember of the Indiana Jones movie.
Oh my God. Sorry. I'm dying over here.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because in a way, I guess you could consider the Harry Potter theme, because Spielberg was supposed to direct Harry Potter.
Mm. True.
He had to drop out of the movie because he had to go and do AI. But
Dang.
that's why John Williams was involved, I want to say, in the first place, because it was supposed to be a Steven movie. So I guess it's kind of adjacent to the Spielberg Williams canon, and in that case, that's something else to consider too.
True.
Here's another one. Oh, can I ask you? A lot of people were just like turned off by just the story of the movie. They just wanted Peter Pan as they know Peter Pan to be. I feel like a lot of the complaining that, oh my God, I didn't want to see Peter Pan as an old guy, and Robin Williams is so subdued. I wanted to see the Robin Peter Pan that we got in the last 45 minutes of the movie. I wanted that to be the whole movie. It was such a downer for the film to explore that. A lot of people had issues with that element of the story, and I feel, I'm sorry, if you wanted Peter Pan, that movie already exists.
Yeah.
That story already exists. I appreciate that there was an attempt to do something new with the story.
I mean, it's not even that new. In terms of a Peter Pan story, you need that cynical older man, and then you go with the children and all that. Then it becomes a kid's movie and all that. So
people were people were a bit divisive on. Some people hated the character of Rufio. What do you think?
No, he was great. He's a rival. He's the guy in charge. He doesn't want to. He's a good character for sure. It's what you expect in a movie like this. Like I said, he's a rival to Peter Pan, and then once he believes he's part of the group, and that moment of him kind of wishing he could have been closer to him, and I think he even says I wish I could have had a father like you. It's it's really touching. He's really great. I really don't have any complaints with any other character.
Some interesting subject matter when it comes to the fact that Wendy grew up to be an old lady, and then Peter falls in love with her granddaughter. Some people found that weird.
I find it weirder of Captain America falling in love with his what was it, Peggy's.
That one was
weirder for me. I think maybe because Captain America was an adult man, and you should have, I don't know, I feel like you could have thought this through more logically of the situation, whereas with Peter,
they don't really do that, do they?
Yeah, I mean, so
they don't in Marvel movies.
And so with Peter though, I don't know, you can also maybe argue he was never really fully in love with her. He just liked her as a friend and something. And then I don't know. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing though. I don't know the mindset of this kid. So that's kind of maybe why it's easier for me to just look past it. So okay.
And then finally, the definition of they don't make them like they used to. This movie may be very silly and a little overlong, but it's a vibrant practical effects extravaganza that's unapologetically whimsical and one of the few live-action expansions of an animated film that actually goes toe-to-toe with the original. It's the antithesis of movies like Maleficent, Burton's Alice in Wonderland movies, and any live-action remakes, most of which are desaturated CGI slop cashing in on the IP. This movie may be the closest I've seen a live-action movie come to capturing the spirit of animation while keeping almost all effects on camera. Yeah,
I can agree with that for sure.
Basically, yeah. Also, I hollered in joy when Zuko's actor showed up. That's funny.
That's always funny. Did you ever watch the live action one from Universal? What was it? When did it come out? Was it in 2001 or 2000?
I think I do believe I was forced to see that. I think it was your sister and Kyle made me watch that. I think it was enjoyable from what I remember. But I don't remember it as much as I remember this one.
Yeah.
How about you?
I'm about the same. I probably remember more of it than you, but that's only because Ale would watch watch it a whole bunch of times and all that. So, but I mean, in terms of like which one I
That
find
one,
it,
well, okay. You mean that one, or did you watch all the Peter Pan movies like more than one time?
I mean, all the Peter Pan movies more than one time, really.
Yeah.
So, uh, but I mean, I feel like Hook is more of a children's movie than the other live
Pan.
action one. Which I mean, it is a kids movie, but like I feel like they were definitely taking it more seriously uh, than any other iteration. And
Okay.
so, which I mean, it's not really a complaint. I actually really like that. And it makes it stand out more, especially when, you have the moments of Peter and Wendy kissing, or when, they're trying to make like a romance of it all. Like it's a really adorable uh moments and all that, especially with the ending, how it ends. Um, it's really, really good. But Hook, yeah, I think like that person said, like it really tried to capture, you know, how you would see it in animation and all that. And like I said, I felt like, when you watch every single set, it just felt like a toy set. So,
Yeah, I feel like all the other versions just have not had the longevity as Hook, whether it
hmm
be the 2003 movie I think you were talking about.
okay.
They even made one in 2015 that was not very well received. Then there was also one, I want to say, in 2022, which was Peter and Wendy, which also
Oh,
not very well received. It's like they keep making these and they're not as good.
hmm
So yeah, there is that. Shall we move on to the next one?
yeah.
I think this next one, I mean, who hasn't seen this movie is, I
Yeah.
think, the better question. This was, I mean, I feel like as a kid, even more than Jaws, this was the one that was like, when I thought of movies, I thought of this movie.
hmm
This was one of the most rewatchable movies of my childhood. Even as an adult, I watched this movie, I feel like, every year.
Hmm.
Um, um, and I know that my family really enjoyed all the Jurassic movies. We would watch 1, 2, and 3,
Hmm.
actually, like a lot of the time. So, Jurassic Park,
Yeah.
1993, an adventure 65 million years in the making. A wealthy entrepreneur secretly creates a theme park featuring living dinosaurs drawn from prehistoric DNA. Before opening day, he invites a team of experts and his 2 eager grandchildren to experience the park to help calm anxious investors. However, the park is anything but amusing as the security systems go offline and the dinosaurs escape. Here is, well, let me get to that in just a minute. Here, some interesting background. Michael Crichton. His 1990 novel Jurassic Park was originally conceived as a screenplay in the 1980s and went through numerous changes before being published as a book. In the late 1970s, a bidding war began for the film rights to Crichton's then upcoming novel Congo, which would not be made into a film until 1995. With Jurassic Park, Crichton hoped to avoid another bidding war and the same protracted outcome by offering the film rights at a fixed price of $1.5 million, as he was concerned with ensuring that a film would actually be produced. Crichton submitted the Jurassic Park manuscript to the publisher in 1990. Director Steven Spielberg learned of the novel that month while he was discussing a screenplay with Crichton that would become the television series ER. Spielberg, who had a lifelong fascination with dinosaurs and a long admired the work of Ray Harryhausen, expressed interest in Jurassic Park. After reading The Galleys, he committed to direct the film adaptation. He liked the novel's sense of adventure and its scientific explanation for dinosaur resurrection, saying it provided a really credible look at how dinosaurs might someday be brought back alongside modern mankind. So then see here, major studios bid for the film rights, each with a director in mind. This included Warner Brothers, which they wanted Tim Burton to do this one. Columbia Pictures had Richard Donner in mind, And 20th Century Fox was thinking of Joe Dante. Joe Dante, of course, who directed the Gremlins movies. Crichton spoke with each director and endorsed Spielberg as the most likely candidate to get the film made, noting it would be a very difficult picture and calling Spielberg arguably the most experienced and most successful director of these kinds of movies. I think he had a pretty good assessment there, David.
Yeah.
Universal Pictures also backing Spielberg as director acquired the rights on May 15th, 1990. Less than a week after they were offered for sale, in 6 months before the novel's publication. So the novel wasn't even out yet, and they had already we're moving on this. James Cameron revealed in 2012 that he tried to purchase the rights, only to discover that Spielberg had acquired them a few hours prior. Oh my God, that's funny. Cameron said that his version of Jurassic Park would have been much nastier. I can only imagine comparing it with his film Aliens. He realized he was not the right director for Jurassic Park after seeing the finished product, commending Spielberg for making a film which could be enjoyed by children. That's funny. That is really funny. Just by hours missing it. That would have been. I also, in an alternate reality, would love to see a James Cameron version of this movie.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So there's a lot getting into the making of this movie. So it eventually became clear to Spielberg that Jurassic Park would require more time in development in order to determine the effects needed to create the dinosaurs. He shifted focus to his film Hook while continuing to monitor progress on Jurassic Park, including script revisions. The art department went on an 8-month hiatus from Jurassic Park to work on Death Becomes Her, another Universal film. After completing Hook, Spielberg wanted Schindler's List to be his next film. Sid Sheinberg gave the green light for him to do Schindler's List. Okay. Man, this is incredible, right? Moving between all these movies at the same time, it's like, whoa, what a production.
Yeah.
Kathleen Kennedy, who co-founded Amblin Entertainment with Spielberg, would serve as producer. And then Dean Cundey, the cinematographer for Hook, would rejoin Spielberg for Jurassic Park. Yada, yada, yada. The writing of it, which we all were... Let's see here. I believe they got David Koepp to be the final writer on here. So, yes, David Koepp, who co-wrote Death Becomes Her, ended up... So Spielberg told Koepp that he could start from scratch, allowing his own ideas to fully develop. He read the novel 4 times before he began writing the screenplay and chose not to read the earlier drafts. Koepp found it difficult to condense the novel's scientific exposition, especially in the dialogue that explains how they were created. Yada, 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 yada. A lot of information about, a final version of the draft and what kind of stars they wanted to work with. Koepp, partially drawing inspiration from Goldblum's casting, made Malcolm into a more comedic character. That's Jeff Goldblum's character. And also modeled Hammond on Walt Disney and refocused his motivation towards a desire to entertain. So, of course, there were changes from the novel. We all know the final cast ended up being who they were, and a great cast at that. But one of the things that should not, I feel like, be dismissed or forgotten is that this movie quite literally changed the face of movies forever. And I feel like you get that whenever you watch. There are 2 documentaries. They even talk about it in the Spielberg one. But if you go on Disney Plus and you watch Light and Magic, that goes far more in depth as to... Because originally, one of the maybe the biggest hurdle in making this movie is, how are you going to make the dinosaurs?
Yeah.
And people who might be listening are like, what do you mean? Just put it in a computer and do VFX. Well, guy, at the time, there was no such thing.
Yeah.
couldn't do that. Like, that was just not something that was possible. So the original idea or plan going into it was, okay, well, let's get all Disney with it and do animatronics. Well, maybe not even I think they meant to do puppets. We'll do puppets. We'll bring the puppet master Phil Tippett, and we'll do it miniature. And they were like, okay, cool, we'll do that. But the problem they were running it is like, okay, they could do that, but we can't make them run and look believable. And Phil Tippett was working tirelessly, because I do believe like he was using stop motion skills to kind of bring this to life. And if the film had been given more time, maybe they could get there. But Dennis Muren, who the supervising VFX guy, was like, okay, this is probably not going to work. And then there were other people in his department that discovered, oh my God, we could do this. And when they showed it to Dennis Muren, and then even further to Kathleen Kennedy, Steven Spielberg, even George Lucas, they were like, holy fucking shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's here. We're here. We're able to make digital effects. This is the dawning. This is the birth of CGI. From this movie going forward, now studios would have that technology. And of course, we've seen it used to tremendous effect, and we've seen it used to disastrous results. Yep. The point there being, this is the one that changed the game. This is the one, when it comes to how movies are made, there is no turning back from. This was the new frontier. And when you see the film, I think it's certainly an important point to make that in the year 2026, where we are right now, there have been 7 sequels? I lose count. There have been a lot of these movies. I don't think for 1 second the dinosaurs ever looked as good as they do in this one.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, there's some moments, but other than that, though, I mean, the T-Rex for sure is like the biggest one that like stands out even now, for sure.
Or the Raptors look incredible, and how they are able to even do what they do. It was one of these situations where at the right place, right time, but everything clicked for this movie.
Yeah.
And it changed the game forever. David, Jurassic Park.
Okay, so I've never fully seen this movie. This is another one of those where, like, you've seen bits and
you've seen
pieces
snippets
of it
and scenes
and scattered everywhere. And so in my mind, I always imagined Jurassic Park to be like a pretty slow movie, because every single time it went up on on TV, I always get the part where they're taking the tour and like they're trying to get the dinosaurs to come out, but it just won't. They're all getting bored of it. I always watch that moment, and then I think the presentation, basically all the bits without any dinosaurs, I always get it. And I always imagined like, man, we take forever to get to those dinosaurs, don't we, huh? So when I finally sat down, literally just a couple of days ago, to fully watch this movie, damn, I was wrong. It's like, no, we get into it right away. I mean, it felt like maybe 20 minutes had passed, and we finally get the moment of welcome to Jurassic
Park.
Yeah, and it's really cool to look at. I can imagine myself, watching this for the first time back in that time, being like, holy shit, and all that. But no, this movie moves super, super fast. We get the dinosaurs, we get the explanation, and then we get right into the conflict.
I think we get the first death like off the bat.
True. That too. But I mean, in terms of like the main characters, like we move super, super fast, but at the same time, like it really takes its time to set up the conflict, like the whole Newman putting in what. I don't know if it was like a virus or something, or like he just set up some code to fuck up all the computers or the system. And like we really take our time with that to get everyone separated, and then to figure out a way how to figure out a way to get everyone back together and all. Like it really takes its
Yeah.
time on it, and I really love it because when they do get back together, like it does feel like an accomplishment. Like okay, cool, you know.
It is. But it's also, I want to say, um, I share with you a little bit of that relationship with this movie where it's like I did previously watch it all the way through, but the moments that I remember the most from childhood were, of course, the moments with dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
Like to me, one of the most, I think as a kid, one of the most like scary sequences of this movie was when the two kids are hiding in the cafeteria, at least the kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
from the two raptors, and they come in. That was like a nail biter for me every time I would see it.
Yeah.
But what I don't remember, well, I should say I didn't remember, because obviously I see this movie all the time.
Mm.
But what I didn't remember when I watched it again as an adult were all the talking scenes. And
Oh, yeah.
what exactly they were talking about. And like, oh my God, there is a lot of substance. Like that's actually the movie right there, because that's kind of telling you the whole, how this is going to go. Because like what I love about it is that it's, the movie starts off so, I mean, in a lot of ways, it makes you forget about how it opened, because a lot of it is like very like pleasant and enjoyable. You like a lot of the principal cast, and you're going to this wondrous place, like the whole like da 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 when they get to Welcome to Jurassic Park, which by the way, that score one of the best ever made.
Oh.
But when they get to the actual sequence, like it's so overwhelmingly joyous, it makes you forget that, oh, we saw somebody get killed earlier on. Anyway, enjoy this wonderful view and this new advent in the history of mankind that we created dinosaurs. Okay. Then they actually have a lot of really interesting philosophical, exchanges going back and forth. And in a lot of ways, it reads, at least to me, like a little bit of an allegory or metaphor for like how we're right now with AI.
Yeah.
If you think about it, but also it can be applicable to whatever you want. The whole thing is, John Hammond never had control. He never had power, because nature rules.
Mm-hmm.
Life will find a way. And I feel like those scenes add so much weight to everything that comes after, that I can't imagine this movie being the same without any of that. Because it's not just that, okay, we're getting into the main ideas and themes of the film, but those slower moments are meant to kind of spend time with those characters, because you kind of want to care about them.
Yeah.
When they get split up and when they're attacked. Because it's funny to me, like, how in the back of your head, you're like, oh, this is not going to be like that scary of a movie. But then legit, it becomes a nightmare, like a horrendous nightmare of a film.
Yeah. I mean, those scary moments, like it really does hit you, because like it almost takes a while for certain scary moments to happen. Because like with the kids, they're running away from the T-Rex, and then they just get stuck in like a whole bunch of treacherous stuff, and then finally you get that moment of calm with that one long neck dinosaur,
Yeah.
and then the other one's going like, oh my gosh, like look at these, like we're still in this wonderful world. And there's a whole lot of comedy, especially with the girl just hating the dinosaurs slowly.
Yeah.
And all that. And then it really wasn't until you get into the kitchen that like you see them in danger and all that. And then by that point you grow in the connection between them and the main guy, especially with, and then even just the siblings together, like you really do care for them both, that when one of them is in danger, you almost, it's really cool when they do work together to try to get away from it and all that. And then obviously you get the two main characters coming in, saving them and all that. So yeah, it just really does a good job of doing, honestly, like Spielberg is just like a master of like less is more. Like there's always these little tiny actions each one takes, especially with what's his name, the Life Finds a Way guy,
Dr. Malcolm.
That's
Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff
Dr.
Goldblum.
Malcolm,
Yeah. I like that moment where as soon as they see the kids in danger, he's the one that's like, okay, I'll distract you, save the kids and all that, and he leaves and everything. And he's really kind of just
And you
incapacitated
kind of
after
wouldn't
that.
expect it from him at that point, I feel.
Yeah,
It kind
I
of
mean,
comes as a little bit of a, oh, you are a hero.
yeah, he's like kind of a show off. He thinks he's a bit full of himself because there's that one line of him going like, "I hate it when I'm right" and all that, because like he just knows he thinks he is all the time. But in that moment of just trying to save those kids and him telling him like help the kids and all that, um, it's just a little bit of heroism, and you start to care about him. And like I said, he's incapacitated basically after that, but he still has such funny moments. Uh,
Yes.
I really did laugh at the moment of they find him, he's unconscious, and they hear a noise. The main woman, she goes, "Oh, should we like? Is it risky to take him and all that or something like that?" And he just like he's off camera, but he goes up. And he's like, "No, risk it, please."
I
And
mean,
all
there's
that.
so many moments, like, I mean, even as they're like, they find him in that wreckage, and the first thing he says, "Remember to thank John for a lovely time." Um, or even, I mean, when they're on the tour and there are no dinosaurs, and he just says, "Now, eventually, John, you are planning to have dinosaurs on your tour, right?"
Mhm.
Like that's, yeah. Or even the line about the Pirates of the Caribbean breaking down and the pirates
Oh,
coming to
yeah.
life and killing the guest. It's funny.
Mhm.
No. And I even like the whole element of like Dr. Grant and Dr. Settler, and how like they have a relationship. But Dr. Grant is like does not like kids, and then he's forced to be with kids, and that's kind of his arc throughout the movie. It's like he
Yeah.
gets to a place where like, oh, he actually would be a pretty cool parent.
Mhm.
Pretty good parent at that. So yeah. Let me look at. Here is a review from Letterboxd. An invitation into a higher realm, one painted with dinos and told through an emphatic capacity for awe. Spielberg's sincerity has always searched for hope within his worlds, but he truly found it in 1993, one of the purest films to ever greet an audience. The images feel like they're connected to the energy and experience of the viewer. It wouldn't survive without us. We feed the film wonder, terror, passion, and suspense, and it projects it all back. Heightened, vivid, and alive. This was the beginning for me. It all starts with Jurassic Park. The first Brachiosaurus sighting is one of the cinema's capital G great images. Its majesty and clarity is unmatched. John Williams' score scores the scene as a living embodiment of a miracle, swirling and rising into the clouds as we collectively weep at at nature's expanse of our own insignificance. Alan's glance toward a lake of roaming creatures and the wide shot that follows is an entire prayer in a single cut. The magic of movies shown through succession and payoff. Entire beasts and lumbering presences make themselves known, but Spielberg still holds an impact rather than the spectacle. Holds on impact rather than spectacle, with a spoonful of trembling jello or a gigantic footprint autographing a pile of mud, lighting up the imagination as well as an earth-shaking T-Rex roar. I mean, it's really hard to say much else with,
Yeah.
this movie is genuinely one of the most beloved movies ever made.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's to me, this is like one of the ones where it's just kind of a perfect movie. And then to this day, I feel like remains to be one of the most thrilling he's ever made. Um, okay.
Mm. Yeah.
Well, if that wasn't enough, um, he had another movie come out this year, David, if you could believe that. And Jurassic Park, I want to say, we should mention, and I don't believe we mentioned it with E.T., but E.T., when it came out in 1982, at the box office became the highest grossing film ever made. And I don't quite remember if it lost it to some other movie, but eventually it would go to this movie, Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park ended up, at the time of its release, the new highest grossing film ever made. And I think it would be Jurassic Park until then Titanic later on in that decade. So there's that. But 1993, and by the way, keep in mind, Steven is just the kind of guy that likes to work a lot.
Mm.
And while all this was happening on Jurassic Park, moving, it took years to set up the story and get up the cast and everything and settle on the right everything, that they had to take time off while Steven would finish Hook and they would do another movie, The Crew. All the while the post-production was happening, Steven basically had to split town and go to Europe and film something else that was in its own right a titan. This is the movie Schindler's List, also the year 1993. Whoever saves one life saves the world entire. The true story of how businessman Oskar Schindler saved over 1,000 Jewish lives from the Nazis while they worked as slaves in his factory during World War II. Of course, starring Liam Neeson as Oskar Schindler and Ben Kingsley, Ralph Fiennes, and so many amazing, talented actors in an ensemble. I think to this very day stands the test of time. My controversial take is that this is a hard movie to watch, but I've seen it many, many times, and the more that I watch this movie, the more of an appreciation I really do gain for how much of an extended ensemble this movie has. And the more times you watch it, the more I think you connect with all the individual people. Not that you don't the first time, but it should be acknowledged that this is not something most people, I think, would care to rewatch because of the immense amount of pain I feel most people would feel when watching the true horrors that you see before you. Based on Schindler's Ark, Spielberg waited 10 years to make the film as he did not feel mature enough. He wanted to embrace his heritage after the birth of his son Max. He said that it greatly affected me. A spirit began to ignite in me, and I became a Jewish dad. Principal photography began on March 1st, 1993, in Krakow, Poland, while Spielberg supervised the post-production of Jurassic Park. To make filming bearable, Spielberg brought his wife and children with him. Against expectations, the film was a commercial and artistic success, and Spielberg used his percentage of profits to start the Shoah Foundation, a nonprofit organization that archives testimonies of Holocaust survivors. Schindler's List won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Spielberg's first Best Director. I do want to say that on that same night, Spielberg's other film of that same year, Jurassic Park, won 3 Academy Awards, which means in total, both of Spielberg's films won 10 Academy Awards in one night. So that's a pretty good night.
Mm-hmm.
In response to meeting the Holocaust survivors during the filming of Schindler's List, Spielberg decided to use some of the proceeds to establish the Survivors of the Shoah Visual History Foundation in 1994. This is what Ebert wrote. Roger Ebert. Flaubert once wrote that he disliked Uncle Tom's Cabin because the author was constantly preaching against slavery. Does one have to make observations about slavery, he asked. Depict it, that's enough. And then he added, an author in his book must be like God in the universe, present everywhere and visible nowhere. That would describe Spielberg, the author of this film. He depicts the evil of the Holocaust, and he tells an incredible story of how it was robbed of some of its intended victims. He does so without tricks of his trade. The directorial and dramatic contrivances that would inspire the usual melodramatic payoffs. Spielberg is not visible in this film, but his restraint and passion are present in every shot. Filmmaker Claude Lanzmann criticized the film for its weak representation of the Holocaust. Emre Kurtic, a Hungarian author and concentration camp survivor, disliked the film, saying, "I regard as kitsch any representation of the Holocaust that is incapable of understanding or unwilling to understand the organic connection between our own deformed mode of life and the very possibility of the Holocaust." I'm sorry. I think I clicked on the wrong thing. Let me see here. So it's a very long cast of people here, but the point overall, Spielberg finally got to a place that he wanted to make this movie after holding on to it for 10 years. Scheinberg, the one that owned the rights to it, was like been trying for a decade for him to make this movie, and he did not feel comfortable up until that point. I should say that this is the first movie Steven makes with Janusz Kaminski. That is his longtime cinematographer. I do want to say that except for The Lost World, every movie Spielberg makes going forward has Janusz as his cinematographer.
Mm.
And the cinematography is important in this movie because it is presented in black and white. Spielberg decided to use black and white to match the feel of a documentary footage of the era. Cinematographer Janusz Kaminski compared the effect to German Expressionism and Italian Neorealism. Kaminski said he wanted to give the impression of timelessness to the film so the audience would not have a sense of when it was made. Universal Chairman Tom Pollock asked him to shoot the film on a color negative to allow colored VHS copies of the film later to be sold, but Spielberg did not want to accidentally beautify events. However, scenes with the girl in the red coat were shot in color and later rotoscoped over by hand to remove all color except for the coat. John Williams, who frequently collaborates with Spielberg, composed the score to Schindler's List. The composer was amazed by the film and felt that it would be too challenging. He said to Spielberg, "You need a better composer than I for this film." Spielberg responded, "I know, but they're all dead." Talking about Mozart or Beethoven. In the scene where the ghetto is being liquidated by the Nazis, the folk song, I'm not even going to, I can't pronounce that, is sung by a children's choir. The song was often sung by Spielberg's, The song was often sung by Spielberg's grandmother, Becky, to her grandchildren. The clarinet solos heard in the film were recorded by klezmer virtuoso Jora Friedman. Williams won an Academy Award for Best Original Score for Schindler's List, his 5th win. Yeah. Let me look over at Letterboxd. Oh my God, Patrick Williams. Truly wild to think a couple years earlier the same director made Hook. Okay. Needless dig there, but I guess that's just how it goes. A red coat. That's all it is. It's used to keep warm. A shelter against the blistering cold. Gusts of winds tatter and billow, threatening the gentle glow that results the little red coat. In all the horror, the absolute hell, the devastation, and the inhumanity, a simple color evokes so much more than the thought of gentle compliments and a tender smile. Schindler's List is simply one of the greatest films committed to celluloid. Bar none, no exaggeration. It is an essential, historical, vibrant, emotional, magnificent, harrowing, and impeccably orchestrated as anything that's ever been released in the cinematic medium. And, like the red coat of the little girl, the film will never fade, only growing in distinct majesty and singular clarity. Yeah. Let me just tell you, This is Chris Evangelista. Spielberg takes everything he's learned from blockbuster filmmaking and applies it to a non-blockbuster story, with stunning results. When you look beyond the horrors and the emotion, you find a film that's loaded with brilliantly crafted set pieces that sear themselves into your brain. This movie, I was thinking a lot about what should I say about it that hasn't been said, and I don't know if I can say anything new, but I will just tell you that not only may this be the most important movie that's ever been made, but it may, I feel, even though it's not my favorite Spielberg film, it's up there, obviously, and I feel like when we talk about the best movies ever made, this should be one of the ones that should be in consideration and conversation, because I cannot even begin to tell you how people could look and think about the production, think about what this movie is, what it is, and what it presents to you. I don't think there ever will be a better representation of the horrors of the Holocaust. I don't think there ever will be something that presents the duality of humanity and inhumanity that we see in this film. When I tell you, the very first time I ever watched this movie, how emotionally distraught I was not okay. I deeply was not okay. The first time, the second time, or the third time I watched this movie. I know one infamous moment 10 years ago or so, where it was on Netflix, I think. I don't know. And I chose to start this movie at 3 a.m. And I did not sleep well that night, or morning, I guess you could say. It's one of those films that I think truly make you understand. And I think for me, it cements what a fucked up planet we live on. Because before this, you can say you know what happened because you read it in a textbook or a teacher told you. But when you see the things that happen in this movie, that they actually happened in real life, it's hard to untether yourself from that reality. Because to do so would be untethering yourself from your own humanity. And many people have. Like the Nazis did in that story, in those version of events. How people to this very day continue to do that. By committing atrocities that are of this stature or even worse. When we think about some of the worst things that have ever happened on this planet, we think about the Nazis. We think about the Holocaust, the extermination of Jewish people for no other reason than Hitler needed a group of people to blame for the failures of their own country. And how that country got behind that man because of how charismatic and wonderful he was. And they were so ready to blame a group of people. Yeah, let's imprison them. Yes, let's burn them up in a stove in an oven. Meanwhile, we're going to go ahead and launch a campaign of world domination. It is a film to remind you that human beings and mankind can, in fact, be quite evil. And I've watched this movie at various points throughout my life. I'm grateful that I'm at the point where I can throw it on and I can keep it together. Not all the way, obviously, but I can appreciate it as a film and I can catch a lot of the majesty that Spielberg brings to it as a filmmaker. But as far as the subject matter is concerned, that one is what it is. And because of the nature of it, it is hard to ever this be a film that people are going to just throw on for the fun of it. Because that's just not what you do. But that being said, this is just one of the films that you look at it and you're like, yeah, he won director. This one best picture. There's no question. I don't even know what else came out that year. Who even cares what else came out that year? That was the movie to award because it is a perfect movie. I mean, maybe I just said that about Jurassic Park, but in even more, I think just in your face sense, like if ever there were people that doubted Steven Spielberg's capacity, this was the one that shut them up.
Mm-hmm.
Because how could you question what this was? And it came along at just the right moment. I think Spielberg knew he needed time to sit with it, and it forever changed him.
Mm-hmm.
This is coming at a time when he was finally embracing the part of his people, his Jewishness, as he calls it, is something that for a long time he tried to push away. And how could he not have wanted to when he grew up in America? And in some parts of America, like in the West, which we would see in the Fablemans in Arizona and in California, he was the victim of anti-Semitism, of bullying because of who he was. He was ashamed of relatives that would come and they would speak in a different kind, in Yiddish or whatever. So much of his life, him and his association with Judaism was shameful. He did not want any part of it. And this was coming at a time where he was beginning to embrace that. And his own wife, who does not come from Judaism, converted because she loved Stephen so much. And she helped him get back into it at the time that they were having their children. And you could tell just by watching the film, this must have been a horrendous experience for Stephen, because, and I know I already said on this, but like when you watch the film, there are set pieces. Like, for example, the liquidation of the ghetto. When they shut it down, they capture them and they send them off to some other place where Ralph Fiennes is in charge of them now. That whole sequence is, I think, a masterful work of chaos in ways I don't believe I had seen since, up to or since. And the horrors that are captured, I mean, there's like a million awful things happening in the frame that you really just can't believe in. And part of your humanity is just like trying to catch up with the film, but it keeps, giving you more and more blows. But at the heart of it is the story of a man who saw it as an opportunity to make money. Hey, I'm a war profiteer. This is great for business. And you watch so much of the film, him take advantage of them. But there comes a point where he finds his humanity, or I should say maybe it finds him.
Mm-hmm.
And he begins to see that he's doing something more significant here than just doing a business. In fact, it gets to the point where he fully realizes what he's doing. The business just becomes a complete afterthought. And he's just doing this operation to keep his family, because the Schindler Jews do become family. I mean, it's an incredible story to think that this was somebody of a background that could have just, and he was a member of the Nazi Party, but what he did was he saved hundreds of people's lives and generations, the children and their children's children, therefore, going forward. And I think, the scene where he's breaking down crying is, I think, to me, just a moment of just pure emotion that you can't help but relate. But even more powerful still, the ending of the film, because Stephen so wanted to be little that he wanted to leave as little room as possible for any doubt that this ever happened, because there are assholes that doubt that the Holocaust existed, obviously. But the ending is the proof, is the evidence. I mean, we have plenty of that when we captured the Nazis and everything. I mean, it was not hard to see. But on film, to see the survivors, side by side with the actors that played them, and put the stones in remembrance of Oskar Schindler. I mean, talk about an iconic movie every which way, but an iconic ending in that too. You may say this is perhaps the best Steven Spielberg film, and I think no one would be mad at you for saying so.
Mm-hmm.
You can even say this is one of the best movies ever made, bar none. And that's just kind of where it is. And I mean, I had the privilege of being able to see John Williams a few years ago in concert at the Hollywood Bowl. and he played the main theme live from this movie. And when I tell you, the entire audience was arrested in silence because, first of all, that piece of music is, I mean, it's breathtaking and how it gets to you. But if you know the movie and you remember how it's used, and when you're hearing it back, it just does something to you. You just can't help but just be brought back to the tragedy of what happened. I'm not even sure what I was thinking. I'm not even sure I could think when I was listening to that. But it was a moment that I won't soon forget. David, your history with this movie and you, I know it's hard to follow. It's just an amazing movie.
No, yeah, I 100% agree. This is absolutely a fantastic movie. Probably put this at top 5.
Yeah,
but I do recommend people watch this a second time. I know it's rough especially because of me watching it the first time. You know, I noticed everything that you just mentioned in the beginning of your review of the whole tragedy of it, the death, just the suffering that they all went through. That's really all I remember. And obviously, I do remember Liam Neeson, you know, saving them and wishing that he could do more. It's always a standout. I always cry whenever I see a clip of it. But you really just noticed that, you know, on your first watch. On my second watch a couple of days ago, I probably cried more watching it that second time, because there was just certain things I knew more of, especially with the little girl in the red coat, how Oscar Schindler viewed it and all that. And I watched the second time, I mainly just noticed the two main heroes, which is, you know, Liam Neeson's and Ben Kingsley, and especially Ben Kingsley.
Oh yeah,
had to choose. I kind of wish we could have seen moments of him like really grapple with that choice of like,
right.
Okay, I guess it's just gonna be this person who I'm gonna help. But like all I kept thinking
you notice more in that second viewing, or in more viewings of it, how much he really went to work. He didn't waste any time. Like he saw an opportunity to save his friends, as many as he could, and he took it from the very beginning.
Yeah, he for sure went to work, took every opportunity that he could, and like just always even like try to like rush them to be like, all right, catch up here. You know, hey, you are a metal worker, so that's all you are now. But like all I kept thinking about him was just like the patience of this man, of like not even just hoping things would work out, but like, I don't know, maybe he thought Liam Neeson's character would turn or something. Maybe he had some hope that Schindler would come around and be more helpful. And sure enough, when he did, it was almost stressing him out, because it's like, you're being very helpful, I love it and all that, but like we got to keep this up. We can't just like throw it all away. But you know, Oscar Schindler is someone who, like, when he gets to work on something, he also like goes head on with it. And with Liam Neeson's, I completely forgot about that line of him going, I know why I failed the first time is because I didn't have war and all that. And like, it really like hit me in that moment when he said that line. I was just like, what? Wait, what are you talking about? Like, what is it, the thing that you didn't have and all that? And then he like, you know, he kind of like makes it long, like war, you know. And I was just like, oh, okay. Yeah, you weren't that great of a man at the beginning, huh? Damn. And I mean, I knew that in the like on the first watch and all that, obviously, because he just cared about money.
You don't notice it at first because like, he's so charming, and I think what you notice a lot in subsequent viewings is like how when we see him as he's introduced in the movie, he's not known, but in the course of one night, he got everybody in that restaurant to just sit with him, to the point where he kind of became a celebrity in like Nazi circles overnight, and how much goodwill that bought him for what he wanted to do. And you could tell he was a businessman. You can tell he had a lot of charm. But when he says that, it kind of reminds you, it's like, oh, that's right, this guy isn't a good guy. Mind you, he says this to his wife, who he openly cheats on.
Yeah.
That's why they don't live together. Like, she lives back in their hometown. He lives where he's at now, and he has like a different girl every night. I mean, he's literally Tony Stark.
Yeah.
When you think about it, it's like
True. But and like when he turns, like I can't honestly, like, I mean, you probably could pinpoint it of the, girl in the red coat and all that, but I love the fact that there isn't a moment like where he stands up going like, oh no, this is all wrong and all that. Like it's not really in your face his turn to do the right thing. It just sort of
it happens at some point off screen, right? I feel like the closest it comes to was when there's a point, there are a couple of points where like he's kind of like forced to grapple with like when he talks to Stern, what the fuck, man? Why are you hiring people with one arm?
Yeah.
Like what is that? And then also later on in the film, when this girl comes and confronts him like, hey, I've heard rumors about you that you save Jews. I have my parents who are in this camp. Can you please hire them to work for you that way that they're protected? And he kind of just like tells her to go away and like fuck off and like, no, that's not what we do here. Then he goes to Stern and it's like, hey, what the fuck's going on? But then it ends and he's like, okay, save him anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel like you don't ever get a point where he's like, okay, this is what I'm doing. It kind of, but I feel you get the sense that he knows deep down it's a byproduct of what's happening here. But the whole time it's like, he's not anti-Semitic. Like, he's part of the Nazi party, but doesn't give a fuck about whether or not they're Jews or not. He just sees labor. What separates him from the other Nazis is that the other Nazis legit just love murdering people. I mean, that's just what we see, and they're legit anti-Semitic because that's what Hitler tells them to be. He's not here because he's a true believer. He's here because he wants to make money, which they're, by the way, to only just remind people that to this very day, we have examples of capitalists locking hand, foot, and step with fascists. That's kind of just what happens. What's always happened.
Yeah.
You were saying.
And no, yeah, like I said, like it doesn't, he doesn't show it off the moment that he turns. It's always this, it's a really slow burn of it happening. And yeah, like you pointed out, he constantly has those moments of like, I'm not the hero, but then he's just like, fuck, okay, fine, I'll do the right thing here. And then tries to help those as much as he can. And then once he really gets moving, you are kind of left wondering like, how, like, what's the end game here? Like how are you gonna keep this up? And then he just adds more to his heroism where he's like making those bullets and other types of like armory and going like, make sure these things don't work, fuck them. And it's like, for someone who wants to, who is just in it for himself, it's almost like unnecessary for him to have done that. He could have just make the weapons. He could have kept these people safe. But no, like, he kept going and going, and you don't, obviously he did it for, good, for the goodness of his heart, like just because it's good and all that. But you are kind of questioning like, why are you doing this? It's like, why exactly did you want to like keep this up? And then you just get to the ending and like, I guess you feel the weight of just his weight of everything. That line again, I keep crying over it. I almost want to cry right now. Him going like, I could have done more. I could have saved one more. And I do love that line of, what was it? Saving one life is saving the world.
To save one life is to save the world entire.
Everyone coming together, and he literally leaves in like prison garb, throwing away everything. And I mean, that's just like true heroism right there.
Yeah.
And
yeah, he was a very flawed man. Very flawed man, and the movie makes no qualms about that. They even say like he didn't succeed at repairing his marriage with his wife, but and he wouldn't have any successful business. But despite the flaws, that man in that moment in time represented the best of what humanity could be, and that should not be forgotten. and it's I don't recall quite when the turn happens, but like I do love that it gets to a point where he literally like he buys them, he moves them to his town and his facility because otherwise they were going to go to Auschwitz, which not great. It's really kind of one of the things you notice the second time when the women realize that they're not being gassed, that they're just getting a shower. As they walk out, they then turn around and they see a group going downstairs, making it very clear that those are the people who are about to be executed, some of which included children in that group, which is quite horrifying in case people did not, quite see that part. But one of my favorite moments toward the end was when, the war is declared over and he basically just tells the Nazis to like put up or shut up, like basically to leave. It's the entire film. You're seeing Nazis just mow people down for any reason they want to, but at the very end, Schindler was like, "You've lost. You're now basically fugitives of war." Just emasculating them. It's like, okay, you hate Jews. Here they all are.
Yeah.
Go at it. Have at it. Or you can return to your families. And they all just like one by one leave. And I love that the other commander was just like slowly walking away in disbelief of that they actually lost. Like when he takes away their ability to murder Jews, it just shuts them down. Something interesting that I noticed, I think, in this most recent rewatch there. But I feel like this is just going to be one of those movies that people, when they do a Spielberg rewatch, I think naturally you'd want to just skip this because if you've seen it once, I think for a lot of people, they would be like, once was enough. There's actually, I think, I don't know if I could find it real quick for you to share with you. But have you seen clips of people walking out of this movie when it first came out in the year 1993?
No.
Let me see. So, all right, let's see. It's a very short clip. I'm going to send it to you right now. Let me open up Messenger so that way you could see it. And we're going to react to it right now. This is obviously from 1993. And I'm not sure what movie theater it's at. It doesn't matter, but like people are, I think they're out there watching for reactions. When you have it, let me know.
Fragen? Dürfen wir Sie nach einem ersten Eindruck fragen?
Ja, es ist für mich im Moment noch sehr ergreifend. Also das muss man verarbeiten. Nicht? Aber solche Filme sind wichtig. Und man sieht es ja in Jugoslawien, dass sich solche Sachen wiederholen. Und vielleicht denkt man mal allgemein mehr nach. Und hoffentlich gucken viele Leute sich diesen Film an.
Was hat Sie besonders ergriffen?
Mich hat sehr ergriffen, wie getrennt nun sind die Familien. Kinder von den Eltern und Männer von den Frauen.
Ja, also ich bin erschüttert. Ne? Ich bin vollkommen fertig. Ne?
Was hat Sie besonders beeindruckt oder besonders erschüttert?
Naja, dass sowas überhaupt passieren konnte. Ne? Und dann eben der Mann, ne? Dass der so viel gerettet hat, das erfüllt mich mit Hoffnung.
Kann ich sagen, es war einfach unglaublich.
What more can be said to that? I think it's a pretty universal experience. I hope that the film and the legacy continues to endure, and I hope it continues to remind people what can happen when we don't make the right choices, when we continuously put people in power who only care about themselves and use power against us and to crush us. This being something that has happened in the past does not preclude it from ever happening again.
Hmm.
I hope that never happens again. I hope we don't live through that. But it very likely could. And movies like this existing would hopefully remind people that it doesn't have to just be in the past. Anywho, we're going to go ahead and I want to say leave it there. Any other thoughts to add for tonight, David?
No. It's just, like I said, I really do think you should give it a second watch. You'll definitely get more from it. So,
absolutely. Well, with that being said, I want to thank everybody here for watching and listening. Wonderful conversation tonight. As you can tell, it takes a while to get through Spielberg's filmography, and with every one of his films, there's a lot to say. But stay tuned. Next time, we will discuss The Lost World, Amistad, Saving Private Ryan, and AI. Every episode, there's like at least 2 or 3 giant movies in there. It's like, oh shit. It's what it is, guys. Thank you so much again. Stay tuned for all of our programming coming up on Red Spotlight. There's a lot of it coming your way. A lot of it's Spielberg related. A lot of it just plain old movie related. Stay on our Red Spotlight for more content, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
bye.